Let's go ahead and take a look at our third example here. So the text here says the string will not disappear. Now again, the point of this form is to demonstrate how to keep the data that somebody adds into a text input after they submitted the form. So let's go ahead and write hello in here and click Save My String. Okay, so this says you submitted a form and your value is saved. And then the string that will not disappear still says hello. Now when we submitted these other forms, the text actually disappeared when we submitted it. And we've already looked at part of what happens here in order to display this data. Let's go ahead and jump back to the editor. At the very bottom, we have our third example here. And remember, we printed the myString variable here for the value attribute. Now the only question, which you might have answered already, is how we get the data into the myString variable. So let's go ahead and scroll back up to the top and pretend we're PHP working through this code after the third form got submitted. So we begin by initializing this myString variable to be nothing, and that allows us, when we create that third form initially, to print myString without causing any errors to display. Next, we check to see if the action variable is set, which it is, and then we switch based on the value of that action variable. We check to see if it's display, it's not. So we check to see if it's contact, and it's not. And finally, we check to see if it's persist, which it is. So if we scroll down to the bottom again and looked at the hidden input here, the value is persist for the name of action. Let's go ahead and scroll back up to the code. And so the first line here is grabbing the value that the user submitted for myString by getting it from the get variable. Now this form was submitted via get rather than post, so we would also see this variable in the URL. So if we jump back to the browser and we looked at the URL here, we'd see myString equals hello and action equals persist. So this is what happens when there's multiple variables that get submitted via a get method. Okay, I'm going to jump back to the code here. So again, we first set myString to be that value, and then that's what gets printed in the value attribute of the input. And finally, we print a confirmation, which simply says you submitted a form and your value is saved. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the new things that we learned by looking at this. First of all, this example includes 3 different forms. So now you know how to distinguish between the various forms when you create the processing code for them. In this case, we added a hidden input called action, and then we did a switch based on that action. The second thing that we learned here was how to use a switch statement, which is just an alternative to a series of if statements that check the value of the same variable each time. We also took a look at the request and the post variables that get created automatically when a form is submitted, either through the post method or the get and post method in the case of the request variable. We also looked at how to send mail. Now there's more complicated ways to send mail that allows you to, for example, send HTML as mail, but this is still pretty powerful to see how easy it is to send email through PHP. Okay, so we're already getting pretty practical with our forms. In our next example, we're going to look at another implementation of a form that allows us to filter out data from some kind of database. In this case, we're using our people array that we used in our previous examples.